Hello, I'm Lucas Kanga, and in today's session, we're going to tackle a fundamental topic for our course. What are cognitive neurosciences? A word that frightens many and excites many others. Neurosciences comes from a word that relates to the merging of psychology and science. Psychology, which for the last 40 or 50 years had only studied theories, now joins forces with technology and we do science. Why? Because we began to detect this brain through certain technological tools, such as functional magnetic resonance imaging, tomography, or advances made with electroencephalography, and all of that brings us much closer to the study of the brain. So this is precisely where neuroscientists no longer study just psychology, but the biological substrate where all these processes take place. And if you walk into a neuroscience laboratory, you'll find people from philosophy, sociology, biology, technology as well, computer science, and above all, medicine and psychology. And all of them are dedicated to studying and distinguishing the brain from the mind. Many times throughout history, we've understood the mind as the reservoir, or the place where the soul is kept. Many theories spoke about the mind as the place where the being, the spirit, resided. After much research, we can now offer a slightly more scientific distinction. What we're going to say now is that the brain is the biological substrate. It's the parenchyma, as we doctors say. These are all the tissues that make up the nuclei, the grey matter, the white matter, and a whole host of other areas that we'll leave aside for other classes for now, but it all relates to functionality. But above all, this brain is divided, it is organised. Why do we need to organise it? Simply in order to study it. We're going to talk about the reptilian brain, the limbic or mammalian brain, and the neocortex brain. The reptilian brain consists of all those structures that are very well protected, almost at the centre of the brain, which allow us, for example, to breathe, to reproduce, to maintain heart rate, to attack or defend ourselves. It's something very, very basic, and that's why it's so well protected within the brain structures. But we also developed another type of brain called the mammalian brain, or the limbic brain. And this brain's a bit more evolved and allowed us to form families, build relationships, follow social rules, feel emotions, and remember who our loved ones are. And with that, we thought we were ready, but in reality, we began to think. And Descartes, some years ago, said, "First I think, then I exist." But that thought wouldn't have been effective if we didn't have what is called the neocortex. Neo meaning new, this cortex is rather frontal or rostral as it's called, which grows towards the face. It's what allows us to make decisions, to follow social rules, which is often very complex nowadays. Also, for example, deciding what I want and what I don't want. Inhibitory controls, restraining myself from things I should avoid. And that's why all that more logical and relational thinking starts to fold in, and so we begin to add up how we understand the world. And that's why it's called cognitive neuroscience. And cognitive refers to how the brain and the mind come to know the world. This way of understanding reality or creating reality is something that science, philosophy, and other fields have always questioned. Does the brain perceive, or does the brain create realities? That's why the way in which we come to know the world is studied by cognitive neuroscience. And what comes next is to differentiate between the brain and the mind, because although we've already defined the brain as the biological substrate, we're going to open up that black box, the skull cap as we doctors call it, and after several layers we'll find a uniform mass that generally weighs about 1.3 to 1.5 kilos. A little liar in women. Many theories suggest there's an efficiency theory, and that women's brains are much more connected than men's. It's simply the biological parenchyma. We're going to have arteries, we're going to have veins, and obviously a whole host of structures. But what is the mind? The mind is all our thoughts, our feelings, all the decisions we normally make. It's that which can't be seen, which in the past was confused with the soul. Up until several centuries ago, it was thought that we had humours, that this mind was simply fluids running through us, making us who we are now. The soul was also defined as the mind. This mind, which is very complex to measure if you want to, but what we do in neuroscience is bring together the study of the mind and the brain into one. Science. And that's why the topics we're going to cover in this module are so relevant, as they have to do with understanding what neuroscience is for. Neuroscience studies a whole range of paradigms, a whole range of topics that shape how we relate to our environment. For example, attention, memory, decision-making, motivation, perception, when we think we're perceiving something real, but in fact it's not. These and many other topics will be covered in this course. We invite you to join us, and we thank you for choosing this module.